Welcome to Universal Man. My name is Mark Weppett, and I'm here to help you sharpen your masculine edge. In today's video, we're going to be talking about how to make stress work for you. And if you're someone who's struggled with stress, this can really help you out. I know personally, learning how to make stress work for me has absolutely transformed my life, and it can transform yours too. Welcome back, everybody. Today's video is one that I'm pretty excited about. It might be a little bit longer than usual, but it's a topic that I think is really cool. It's really important to learn how to work with stress in order to be the best man possible. Because to be your best man, you got to learn how to step into these challenging situations and really show up and kick butt. And that can only happen if you know how to work with stress. This whole video is basically going to be like one big analogy. What we're going to be doing is building a stress engine. And when you've got this stress engine, what it does is it allows you to control the power of stress and use it to drive yourself forward in a direction that you really want to go. So let's get to it. All right, so this journey begins with a little spark, and this little spark is your consciousness. You can think of your consciousness as kind of this little pilot light in the universe of your existence. Okay, and just like any spark, if it's held up to some kind of material, it can light that thing on fire. It can start a reaction if that thing is flammable. And so these things that we're going to be holding up our spark of consciousness to are our thoughts, okay? And so some thoughts are highly, not reactive, okay? Like if I, look at if I think about the color of my toothbrush, okay? That doesn't really do anything in my brain. It's just like, okay, boring fact. But if my spark of consciousness touches a more flammable thought, it'll produce kind of this fire of emotion, okay? And sometimes this emotion is very warm, it's kind of like a nice pleasant glow, and that would be kind of your happy thoughts. So you think about the things that make you feel good, like the beach or vacation, or the people you love or something like that. But sometimes the fire produced by this spark meeting a thought is not so pleasant, and this is what we normally call stress. So stress is when that little spark of consciousness touches some thought that then bursts into this kind of harsh and intense sort of energy, which we call stress. And this stress, it's, in reality, it's the release of stress neurochemicals, like cortisol and stuff like that course through us and fill us with an uncomfortable tension. Now, the problem is that a lot of us, myself included, don't really handle this energy the best when it comes up. There's two main ways in which we sort of screw up handling this fire of stress. The first way would be to just ignore it, right? Because if you take that, you push that thing away, you don't have to feel it anymore. You just kind of pretend it doesn't exist. So maybe you got some bills to pay, or you got some problems to sort out, and if you just push it out of your mind for a moment, you get some relief. But obviously this doesn't really work. It's like, walking into a room in your house, realizing it's on fire, and then going and watching TV and just thinking, it'll, at least I don't have to deal with it, or at least I'm not dealing with it, right? And that's just silly. So we can't do that. We can't ignore it. The other way we tend to kind of screw up around stress is that we will, look at the problem, look at the stress, but not do anything about it. And so, you kind of get points for at least looking at the problem. But if that's all you're doing, if all you're doing is looking at the problem, well, then you have all the negative consequences of not doing anything. Plus, you essentially make the flames hotter, because to take the next step in our analogy, your awareness, your attention, it's kind of like a flow of oxygen. And if you put oxygen on a flame, that flame's going to burn brighter and more intensely. So if you're just looking at a stressful situation, if you're just thinking about it, you're just feeding it a flow of awareness, a flow of oxygen, then that flame's just going to burn brighter. But if you're not doing anything about it, then, that's all you're doing. You're just kind of fanning the flames, and you're getting yourself worked up. And this is how people really develop anxiety, is they think about problems and they don't do anything about them. And so they increase the energy around the situation, but all that does is just make them more uncomfortable. So the key to dealing with stress is learning how to make it useful. What you have to do is learn how to take all that energy, that fire of stress, and put it into something that can use that power. And when you can do this, it really changes everything, because you recognize that the solution, or at least the energy for the solution, is found actually in the problem. Because the bigger the problem is, the more stress it produces. And so it's kind of like, okay, your body recognizes, all right, the problem's this big. Well, I'm going to give you this much energy to go handle it, as long as, you actually know how to do that. So this is where the engine idea comes into play. What an engine is it's this big metal thing, you find them in cars or, lawnmowers or whatever. And what they do is they essentially have controlled explosions inside of them. There's a spark, there's a gas, and it mixes together with some air, and it creates an explosion, which moves a piston and causes locomotion. Okay. And that's what a plan is. A plan's kind of just the engine housing. It's like all the pieces or whatever. And so we got to bring the other components that we've already talked about to make it work, to make this engine work. So the plan's the idea. It's the path of action that you can have in your head, okay? And so you need to have then the spark. So the spark's your consciousness. You got that. Then you need to have the fuel. You need to have some gas in it, all right? And the gas it's the problem. It's this whole stress thing. That's your fuel, is the stress. And so you put that in, and then you bring your awareness to it, which is the air mixture, and all that together. If you hold all of that, then you're going to be filled with an intense emotion, okay? But that intense emotion, that explosion of feeling, will happen in the context of a plan, and so you can actually funnel it directly in to some kind of action, some kind of action with your mind, or some kind of action with your body. Now, the big obstacle that people run into with this is that they don't know where the road is that they're supposed to use this engine to drive on. Okay, like some cases it's obvious, right? Like if you don't have a job and you need a job, well, you gotta think about that problem. You gotta show up to it, be aware of it, let it fill you with stress, then let that stress turn into action. And if you do it right, well, you're gonna go find a job and your problem's gonna be solved. And plain and simple, right? That's not too hard. But a lot of times it doesn't seem like there's a very clear path. It's like, well, what the heck are you supposed to do with stress if you don't know what to do, right? So the key is to recognize that there is always two roads that you can use the engine of stress on. Okay, there is the outer road, which is the one we kind of just talked about. It's the road of external action, and sometimes that's there and sometimes it's not. But the road that is always there is the inward road, and this inward road offers an alternative way to handle a problem. Basically, when you take the inward path, you decide to say, all right, well, I'm going to make a change internally so that this thing that seems like a problem is no longer a problem for me anymore because I've changed. So, a simple example of this would be, say you have a coworker who annoys you, all right, and they really piss you off, and it's creating you stress because it's making you not want to go to work. It's making you hate your job, that sort of thing. And so you decide, all right, well, I need to do something about it. I can't I don't know what external path to take. I don't know. I can't get them fired. I can't avoid them because I got to work with them. So what can I do? Well, you got to take the internal path. And what that might look like is deciding to focus more on the positive qualities of that person rather than, feeding energy to the parts that you don't like. Maybe it means that you have to get to know them better. Maybe it means you need to practice and increase your virtues of patience, understanding, compassion, whatever. Whichever way you decide to take it, you got to pick something. And then you can start working toward it. And believe it or not, you can change. That's a situation where if you progress in your plan, you use that engine well enough, you can actually completely overcome the problem to the point where that coworker doesn't annoy you at all. And maybe you even like them, right? So that's always awesome when you have that kind of path in front of you. But sometimes it's still a little bit more tricky. Sometimes there's situations where you've got a problem that you really can't remove all the pain from. There's no true solution, in terms of it's 100% better. So if you're sick, no act of will immediately make you feel better, right? And so in that case, you'll have to take a different approach. You have to frame that pain within the context of something else. You have to maybe increase your virtue of gratitude. Maybe you need to focus on being like, okay, well, I'm sick in this way, but I'm still gonna do the best with what I've got. and you got to maybe take inventory of what you've got. Do this kind of internal activity. If you've got maybe a loved one who's sick or suffering from some kind of problem, then you've got to turn that into some kind of compassion for them, maybe appreciation for them. If you lost a loved one, you can turn the stress of losing someone into an intense gratitude and appreciation for them. So sometimes you got to get a little creative, all right? But that's what's beautiful about this internal road, is that there is so many different avenues for you to explore, and almost every single one of them, well, not every single one of them, but a lot of them, they lead to tremendous personal growth. Often, though, it's really a mix of both. You got to have some of the outward path. You got to have some of the inward path. Maybe you have to grow in some way, but you also got to take a bunch of action. All of that can be driven by stress, and stress can become your friend. You just got to make sure that you look at it, you put it in a plan, and you hold it. It's not comfortable, but it's very, very, very useful. So that's it. I hope you guys got something out of this video. Please like, subscribe, leave a comment, all that good stuff, and I'll see you in the next one. Stay sharp.